Hi, and welcome to Hope with Answers. I'm Janet Freeman-Daily, a patient activist, and I'm sitting with Dr. Ross Camage, who happens to be my oncologist. We're going to be talking about biomarkers in a lot more detail. So, Dr. Camage, a lot of people come to you for second opinions. If you have a patient who comes in and says, my doctor says I don't have any biomarkers, what do you think?
Well, the essence of a second opinion is you very politely doubt everything. So I want to see that data. And really I'm trying to figure out one of two things. Do they have a change in the DNA in their cancer that you can find that's already listed that is clearly driving the cancer, but there's nothing you can do about it? But the group that I really want to talk about is, well, what if they have looked through, A and B techniques and they haven't found a potential driver mutation?
So not all biomarker tests are created equal?
No. So there are some that says, do you have mutation A? And if it says no, that's great. You don't have mutation A. But it doesn't tell you whether you have B, C, or D.
Okay.
Some of these kind of next generation sequencing panels are not the eye of God. They are a selection, they may be a big selection, saying, do you have A or B, B or C, D or E? But still, there may be holes in those panels.
So it might be, this particular test might be good at telling you for sure whether you have EGFR or ALK, and maybe not so good about ROS1.
Well, ROS1 would be one example, but there's small print stuff, and again, it depends on, how hard are you going to look? If it was my mom or my dad, I'm going to look really hard. I don't have a cutoff that says if it's 1% or 0.5%, I'm not going to look. And I think particularly if you're somebody who's got a very high chance, somebody who's never smoked, who has adenocarcinoma, especially if you're young, but not always, I'm going to look really hard. And there are a series of different tests that you can do that kind of overlap and complement each other.
So you might do a different kind of test and look again.
Yeah. So if I give you an example, so most people when they talk about next generation sequencing are looking at something called the DNA of the cancer. And the DNA is the blueprint that kind of spits out instructions that eventually turns into a protein. But there's an intermediate step, which is called RNA. And you can lose some information in the DNA, but you can find it in the RNA. And so some people are doing both a DNA and an RNA-based panel, and you can find things that you missed. And you don't know what you don't know.
Okay, so there are standard tests that some doctors might use, but if you go to a more an academic cancer center that has more experience with molecular testing, they might have these tests.
Yeah, so I really want to look until either I find something or I say I've looked through techniques A, B, and C, and there is no other technique. So you're at the edge of human knowledge, and that's as good as it gets. And
Okay.
I think for the one person in 100 that you find that in, the day you find it, it's worth it.
That's absolutely true. It's worth it for me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us with Hope with Answers.